So the study of instincts in animals is called entomology. So, for instance, if you have a deer that's born, you notice how deer can walk immediately when they're born.
Mm-hmm.
That means there
Mm-hmm.
has to be some psychological algorithm mechanism for them to be able to walk immediately upon birth. That was necessary for survival. When Homo sapien children are born, they cannot walk. They cannot walk for a year or 2 years after they're born. They are incapable of walking. And so
Mm-hmm.
what does that tell you, right? The instinctual necessity, immediately when certain animals are born, they can do things immediately without being taught. That's called entomology. These are instincts that certain animals have that they're not taught. Then there's the term that comes after that is called sociobiology, which is the kind of entomology for humans. And then the metamorphosis of that became evolutionary psychology. Evolutionary psychology is the concept of all the different things that our ancestors passed down from us. So I'll give you an example, an extreme, like a vague or general example of evolutionary psychology. You notice that if you or I were to smell the smell of rotting eggs or sulfur, you and I would both be like, ew. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no one had to teach us to think that
Mm-hmm.
sulfur smelled bad. No one had to.
Mm-hmm.
If you and I were to eat raw sulfur, what would happen to us?
We'd probably get sick or die.
We get sick or die. So what's happened is the evolutionary adaptation or the evolutionary adaptation to find sulfur to smell disgusting. The people who had that adaptation continued to live by not eating rotten food or consuming sulfur that was on the ground. Maybe they lived next to a well or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The people who didn't do that, who consumed the sulfur or consumed the rotting meat, those people ended up dying and not passing off their genes. If you and I, like, again, let's say we were walking across the Royal Gorge. I think it's in Colorado. It's like the tallest suspension bridge in the world. And you were to look over to the side. How would you feel if you were to look over to the side? If you were to hang over the side?
Scared as shit.
So did anyone have to teach you to be afraid of heights?
No.
No. Your fear of heights is an evolutionary adaptation. Your ancestors who weren't afraid of heights, what did they do? They jumped off cliffs. They just jumped and then they died. And then they never had babies.
I've never thought about that.
Yes. So what's left behind? You have to think of evolution as like a sift. You know how you panhandle for gold and you shake it and then the gold is stuck. Okay, you have to think of evolution as a sift. Evolution, death is subtraction, mutation is addition. I know I'm getting really deep into evolution.
Yeah. It makes sense.
But what happens is what'll happen is there'll be a variety, because of mutation, there'll be a variety of different eye colors, a variety of different heights, a variety of different skin colors, and a variety of different proclivities. The proclivities that do not lead to survival do not get passed on. Here's another one. Now, what I just gave you were two general evolutionary psychology proclivities, okay, adaptations. I'm going to give you one specifically in regards to mating, okay? This is ready. So again, the idea that now we have two men, and this is 27,000 years ago. This is the end of this. This is the first point at which hominids are the only. I'm sorry. This is the first point at which Homo sapiens are the only hominids on the planet. The Neanderthals are dead. At this point, there's two men. One man is completely comfortable with multiple men having sexual intercourse with his wife. The other man gets very, very jealous when other men come and try to have sexual intercourse with his wife. Which one of these two men is going to pass on their genes most likely?
The one who gets jealous.
Okay, so the man who isn't jealous, he does not, that proclivity, while it's okay to not be jealous. I know there's a lot of women right now who are like, oh man, I do OnlyFans. I don't know why my man is jealous because I fuck other men. The proclivity to be jealous is an evolutionary adaptation. The man who wasn't jealous was raising someone else's kids. That's what cuckoldry comes from. Okay. And the man who was jealous and actually was with his wife a significant amount of time, or his partner, his pair bonding partner, whoever it is, that maybe there's no marriage. I don't think 27,000
his
years
cave
ago.
woman. Let's just call her his cave woman.
Yeah, his partner. Yeah, whatever. His day one. That woman, if he protects her and he knows, okay, I'm the only person who's been near her, I'm the only person who's had sexual intercourse with her. Now I know the child is mine. So my necessity to be jealous or to mate guard is what causes me to pass on my genetics and not someone else's me not raising someone else's genetics. And so now in 2026, if a man comes up and you're sitting there talking to your girl and a guy comes up and grabs your girl's ass, there's an immediate visceral, almost violent response you have that comes from evolution choosing men who protected their wives' vagina, butthole, whatever, nipples, mouth, whatever, her sexuality, her sexual nature. The guys who did that continue to generate offspring. The guys who didn't did not. I'm going to give you one more from evolutionary psychology. This one. Now, the reason why I brought this up, the first two examples were general, and that's general evolutionary psychology. So like Gad Sad talks about this, and there's other guys that talk about this. Dr. David Buss, the reason why I was so fascinated with him is because he's an evolutionary psychologist when it comes to mating specifically. He is the most cited evolutionary psychologist in the world. I think he's like in the top 20 of most cited psychologists in the world.
Oh, wow.
But his specialty is evolutionary psychology when it comes to mating.
The thing that matters most.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it matters most to a lot of people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I want you to consider this concept, right? You have two women that lived, let's just say 10,000 years ago, and they were in a tribe. And another tribe comes in the middle of the night and they kill all the military age males. They just kill all the men in the tribe. Okay. And they leave all the women behind. So you have two women. One woman is like, I can't believe you just killed my husband in front of me. I would never have sex with you. Fuck you. I hope you die. Okay. And the second woman is like, his wife, she sees her husband dead on the ground and is like, okay, I'll do whatever you want. Now, which one is more honorable? Probably the one who's like, I would never have sex with you. Which one passed on their genetics and survived?
The second one.
The second one. So of the two genders, which gender gets over a breakup faster, men or women?
Women, for sure.
Which gender is able to move on faster to a more high status man, men or women?
Women.
Okay. That adaptation.
It's all making so much sense as you say.
The evolutionary adaptation for women to be able to move on faster comes from, throughout history, the men that they were with were replaceable. Men would die in wars, or the tribe would get invaded and they would watch their man die in front of them, and they have one of two choices. One choice is, I will never have sex with this guy. And while that is noble, that woman will not survive and will not pass on her genes. The woman who chose to take on a new partner did pass on her genes, and that's why you have women today who are more willing to take on new partners, and 80% of divorces are initiated by
women.
There you go. You understand? So this is why evolutionary psychology describes the mating market that we have today in perfect synchronicity, perfection. I've never seen I've never seen evolutionary psychology get anything wrong. Now, there were a few things they have gotten wrong and they've called their own foul. This is really, really inside baseball here. So one of the complaints that, because evolutionary psychology has more testable, predictable hypothesis than almost any form of psychology, and it tends to be more right than any of the rest of them. So it's like the rest of the forms of psychology almost kind of like get jealous, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it. Like marriage counseling, like marriage psychology, that's not a real thing. Like marriage counseling doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you look at the success rate for marriage counseling, you would wonder why it's even a profession. There's psychologists that, like, again, men. Here's another great one. Men who had taken their own lives, something like 91% of them had reached out to a suicide hotline. So this whole therapy speak, talk to someone before you take your own life, become more vulnerable. If 91% of those men had reached out to a psychologist and they still killed themselves, what does that tell you? It doesn't work. That function of psychology, it just doesn't. Its effectiveness is very, very low. Again, I'm not telling you, because if you're thinking about hurting yourself, do call 988. It is important to talk to someone. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. My response to that is getting in shape and having a cool group of friends, dating a beautiful woman, and having an incredible business is a far more likely way for you to not take your own life than calling somebody and telling them all your fucking problems. That's just my opinion. Okay, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. That's just my opinion. So understanding that concept of how men and women work, that evolutionary psychology of how men and women work, it makes things very, very easy to understand whenever you're dealing with the opposite sex. And you have to accept it rather than be like, no, the women will hear this and be like, no, I picked my husband because he had great energy and he had good aura and a great vibe.
That's
not what you picked him.
It's
not that they're lying. They're not lying. They actually don't. They actually believe what they're saying is true.
Got it.
It's just they can't identify the attractive triggers that we have. Now, if women are looking for men and they're looking for, like, hey, what is the best chance for me to get survival, for me to survive? They'll look at men and they'll look for things like broad shoulders, the fur, the brow, the jaw. These are signs of
height is in there.
Yeah, height is in there. Exactly. These are signs. And then also his alignment to other alpha males. She knows that if I align with this guy, likelihood of me and my offspring surviving is higher, right? So she's going to look for those signs. The women who look for the signs of the more muscular, more fit, more violent, more intelligent, more aligned with higher status networks male, the woman who look for that type of male is more likely to pass her genetics on, therefore her male and female ancestors are more likely to have those proclivities as well. That's how evolution works.
Yo, my guy, if you found that video valuable, then you're not done, bro. Keep learning, keep growing, never stop. I want you to click on one of these videos over here. If you're not to the point where you're getting blowjobs weekly from your wife, you're not done. Keep watching. Click one of these. Thank me later.